Hi, this is Phil from PhilFX, and I've got a new tutorial on opening up and essentially starting Maya for the first time. This is for Art 185 class at Phoenix College, and so let's go ahead and get started. Before you open up Maya on the computers that we have at school, there's basically one thing that you need to do first, actually a couple, and the first is you need to go in and check the preferences, and so you want to open up system preferences on one of the classroom Macs, and in particular then click on mouse, and you'll see on the mouse settings the Macs at school have a 3-button mouse, but 9 times out of 10 they're not set up for that. So you want to make sure that that mouse is set up such that there is a primary button, a secondary button, and a button number 3. If it's not done that way, go ahead and click those settings on the different buttons and make sure that it's set up so you have a 3-button mouse. Maya won't work unless you have one, so it's very important that you do that. And you probably need to do that every time because different classes use the computers, and somebody else may use the computer and change it back from a 3-button to a 1-button. So it's a good idea, just a routine thing when you come in, that you want to go ahead and do that. The next thing is you want to open up Maya, and to do that we need to go to the Applications tab and go down and find the folder Autodesk. On the school computers, they'll just have Maya 2014. I have 2014 and 2015. I'm going to do this tutorial with 2015, but there really isn't too many differences between 14 and 15. So just find the Maya app, double click that, and Maya will open up. So we get the startup splash screen, and this is pretty much what the interface looks like in Maya. And one of the first things that you want to do when it opens up is you want to go to Window, down to Setting and Preferences, and click on Preferences, because there's some initial preferences that I think it's important that you set up. One of the first things is you want to go to Settings, and then down here to Files and Projects. And on Files and Projects, you want to make sure that autosave is enabled. What that will do, as the name says, it'll automatically save your program for you. The default is every 10 minutes. For the size of projects that we do in class, that's fine. And I've just had so many problems in the past where students don't have this enabled and will lose power, or the computer will crash, or something else will happen, and they did an hour or 2 hours worth of work and they didn't have autosave, and basically they lost all their work. And that can be very, very frustrating, especially for the student as well as myself, because once it's been crashed there's no way to recover. The other setting that you want to look at here, you may not need it, but down here where it says version, there's this box that says ignore version. What that is for is so in class you're using Maya 2014, and if you went to the Autodesk student community site and downloaded the free version of Autodesk Maya 2015 for yourself, and you created a project at home using 2015, if you tried to open it with 2014 here in class and you didn't have this box checked, Maya 2014 won't open. But if you go in and you click this box, say ignore version, then Maya 2014 most likely will go ahead and open that file. The other thing you'll need to do is you want to be sure and save that file as a Maya ASCII file, not as a Maya binary file. That's a .ma instead of a .mb. And I'll cover that more when we go over projects and saving projects, but I wanted to bring that out. The last thing you may want to do under preferences is the undo. And the default here for undo is 50. You can see I've set it to be about 200. That's not a bad queue size. You can actually set it to infinite, although I don't recommend that. That would end up taking up could end up taking a fair amount of disk space, but 200 is a pretty good limit for setting that up. So go ahead and make those changes, click Save, and then let's go ahead and start looking at the user interface. The first thing we want to do is take a look at the menus. Maya has a very large menu bar. There's quite a few items on there, and the menu bar is actually customizable, and it depends upon what the mode is that you're operating. And the way you set that mode is over here with this drop down box. So you can see right now it says polygons. If I click this, I could set this to dynamics, or I could set this to, say, surfaces. And you'll notice some of these menu items change depending upon what I clicked on. If we go back to polygon, you can see that File, Edit, Modify, Create, Display, Window, and Assets, those 7 menu items all stay the same. It's the one after Assets. In this case with polygons we have Select. If we go over here and I change this to Dynamics, you can see instead of Select we have Particles. So these are the items that change depending upon the mode that you have set. Another very interesting feature with the menus is they can be torn off. So if I go here and you see there's this double bar, I can go in here and I can click on that double bar, and it now makes that menu so it's torn off and it remains on the desktop. This ends up being very handy. Oftentimes if I'm editing polygons, and let's say I went in here and I created a sphere, and I went edited this sphere, and we grow this up, and I want to do some work with it. I may want to have the edit mesh tools up, so I can take mesh tools and I can click on that, and I can have my mesh tools right here by the side while I'm editing and working on this sphere. So having the tear off menus is very handy. Go ahead and delete that. Another thing is the keyboard shortcuts, and there's numerous keyboard shortcuts. Maya has lots of them, just like other programs. Many of the common ones are the same in Maya as you would expect with other ones. If we go down here to undo is Command Z, or if you're on a Windows machine that would be Control Z. Cut, copy, and paste or Command X, Command C, and Command V. So those are common ones that you would have in Maya as well as you have in some of the other programs. The rest of them, as you use certain commands, you'll find that it's often much easier to use the keyboard shortcuts. You'll learn the shortcuts for the ones you use a lot, and the ones that you don't use a lot, you probably won't learn the shortcuts. It's not like any other program that you work with. One of the other interesting things, if we notice, let me tear this menu off here for polygon primitives. If we go over here and we look at sphere and cube, you notice there's a box here. Well, what this box means is there's options for this particular command. So let's go in here. If we click on the sphere and I click on this box, what I end up getting is I get the options for the polygon sphere command. And you'll notice it defaults with a radius of 1 and axis subdivisions of 20 and height of 20. I can go in and we can apply that, and that makes my sphere like the one that you just saw when I was just did that previously. Well, we can go in and I can make this radius, and I can make it up to say 4.5, and I can have 42 axis divisions, and I can have 12 or 10 height divisions. Let's go ahead and hit apply and see what that looks like. Well, that's pretty different from the original one that I created, and you can see that I can go ahead and I can change those presets. Now, one thing about the presets though, if I went in here and I made those changes, let's just close that and let me just delete that. If I come up here and I say create polygon primitives and I say sphere, it's sticky. Those presets that I created are stuck, and they actually will stay in the program until I either change them. Even if I close the program and open it back up, those presets for the sphere will stay that way. The only way you can change those is you go back, and I go to Polygon Primitive Sphere, and let me click that box again, and you can go over here to Edit, and there you have Reset Settings. Reset Settings will save it to the default. So I can go to Reset, and that saves it back to the default. If I hit Apply, then Close, now the default has been set back to that setting. I do have to hit Apply once, and now you can see it's going back to the default setting. There we go, Mesh Tools. That has some. Okay, if we go to Mesh Tools, see the bevel tool and the multi-cut tool. Those are highlighted in green. What that is doing is this is a new feature that Autodesk put in, I believe, in 2014. And the green highlight says that between the last version of the tool and the current version of the tool, there's been some modification or changes or enhancements to that tool. So it's just highlighting changes. Now I can turn that off if I want to. If you go into Winning Setting Preferences, and right here on Interface, right there, highlight what's new, I can click that off, and you won't get those highlights. Or if I don't like green, I could actually go in here and I could change the color, and I could, make it yellow or whatever, and so then they'd be highlighted in yellow, and so I can change how that appears. So anyway, I thought I would point that out on the menu items. Next in line, we have the status bar, and the status bar is this bar going right across the top. And what these are essentially is you set status for certain things that you want to do. The very first one, these first three icons are very familiar, or should be familiar if you used any other applications. This is basically create a new file, this is open a file, and this is save the current file. So a new file, open, and then save. The rest of these here, these have to do with selection. And you can basically create masks or filters to how you select things. The little magnets, those have to do with snapping options, and so when you move things around you can snap them. The rest of these are some of the things that you can display or how the objects behave. Here's some of your render settings. You can actually go in and type in coordinates if you need to for some things. It's not very often that you do that. And these last button here have to do with how this side panel here with the attribute and the channel box are displayed. Below that you have what's called the shelf, and the shelf has a number of tabs, and on these tabs you can see these icons. And basically these tend to be, whatever the workflow is that you're doing. If you're doing rendering and you're going to render out, these are some quick icons that take you to things that you would do for rendering. Creating lights, adding cameras. Here's all your rendering setups. If you're working with polygons, these are your polygon primitive shapes. These are some of the tools for extruding, adding edge loops, some of those tools that you do in modeling. So these just basically, it's a quick reference to get you to functions that you use often. The last down here with custom, you can actually create custom icons that have custom functions. We'll talk a little bit about that later on in class, but you can actually customize and create your own custom functions. Here, this is the what's called the menu toolbox, and these are items for all the translations. So I can move, I can rotate, and I can scale an object. I can select it with just with clicking on it. I can select it using a lasso, or I can select it using a brush. I'm not going to do that right now, but this is for selecting surfaces. So if you have some items and you're trying to select some faces, oftentimes it's kind of nice to be able to do that and select those faces using a paintbrush. The move tool, move and rotate and scale. These basically are the they're called the QWERTY because they use the Q, W, E, R, T, and Y keys for the quick thing. W is always for move. I push the W key and that's a move. E is for rotate. R is for scale. T has to do with a pointing tool where, like with one of the lights or with a camera, you can actually have an object, and then T is where the object is used to push where the object is pointed to. Below the menu toolbox, we have the quick layout buttons. So in this layout, you're looking at the perspective camera. There's a quad view, so it takes you to 4 different views. There's an outliner view, so you have a perspective camera, and this bar here called the outliner. This is the perspective view with the graphing editor. The graphing editor is for doing animations. So basically there's some quick views. Again, this is also customizable, so you can customize some of these views and change them how you would like. Below that you have the timeline. Maya is all about animation, and you need to have a timeline if you're going to animate. And so this is the current frame that I'm on. I'm dragging this back and forth so you can see the frame. I've got a slider bar that can take me across. Do you see these numbers changing? I can change the resolution of how much I see. I can go in here and grab this slider bar, and my current animation is set to be 48 frames long. Like I said, I can grab this box and slide this in and out, so I'm changing the resolution of what I'm seeing as I'm sliding across. So basically this is how you operate the timeline. You've got like DVD or DVR controls over here, so I can play forward, I can play back, I can jump to the next keyframe, or I can jump to the next frame, or I can jump to the end, or I can jump back to the beginning. Down here is a command line. In the command line you can actually type in commands. Maya actually stores a history of all the commands. Everything that you see here, these are all commands that Maya has stored with all the clicking and dragging and things that I have done. You can see here polysphere. That's when I made a polysphere. Here's when I made another polysphere. And so these are all stored as commands. If I wanted to, I could save this off as a history file, load Maya back up, and it could play that back to me. That ends up being very handy when you've got a lot of repetitive tasks that you need to do with Maya, and you can take and save that history off, and it's extremely time-saving. It's a little more advanced, certainly more advanced than what we'll do in the beginning class, but that capability is there. The last thing I want to talk about is the box over here where we have the attribute editor and the channel box. The channel box is really what you'll probably use for most of your animation, so you can grab the parameters you want to animate them. If I go in and grab the sphere, you can see as I move the sphere around, the translate is moving, and so those are the translation parameters that I would use if I wanted to move this sphere through space. The attribute editor is, as the name says, this sphere has a number of attributes that have to do with how the sphere is made, how the sphere is translated in space, and those attributes can all be changed, they can all be keyframed. And so what this attribute editor does is it has all of these different kind of parameters that have to do with how we control this item, in this case just this sphere, and the things that we can do to both render and display it. So I've talked about a whole bunch of things here, but you can find all of this also if you go into the help and you go into Maya help. Okay, so here we have Maya 2015 open. And if we go to the user's guide in the basics, you click on interface overview, and in the help file you'll have this for 2014. I'm showing 2015. The help file is actually quite good, and there's a lot of detail in here, and it can take you through all the different menu items and working with the menu items. So like I said, we covered a lot of material. Hopefully this will help you out, help you get started. Once again, this is Phil FX. Have a great day.